and is sharing my screen. Let me know if you guys can see this. Can you see that okay? It'll be a minor miracle if you guys can see the slide deck okay, because that never happens. No?
We can see it. Yay.
Yeah, looks good.
You can see it. Okay, well, fantastic. Thanks everybody for showing up. This is our very first organized Idem Project Community Open Hour. This is something that is a big achievement for us. We're excited, as you all know, if you're here. Idem is a baby, and we're just getting the community thing going. Hey, Valentina, everybody say hi to Valentina, all the way over there in London. That's cool. I figured it was kind of late for you to be here. That's great. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, not that late.
Not that late. Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, this might be a good time for us to all meet then. We're going to be doing this once a month at present until it becomes necessary for us to do it more. We're going to have our general updates. We're talking about swag, Nick. Tyler is going to be doing a demo for us about running tests with Idem AWS local stack, and then we're going to be answering your questions. If you've attended the SALT Project Community Open Hour, it's a very similar format to what we do over there, and this will only fill in as we do more and more Idem Project Community Open Hours. Our Idem Open Hour is going to be every, forget that part, we're doing it once a month right now. Our next Idem Project Community Open Hour is actually going to be on April 27th at 11 a.m. Mountain. What that means to you, Valentina, I don't even know. I can't even do that math. But I mean, you get the idea. April 27th. I will not be here for that open hour, just so you know. So we'll have Nick or Tyler or somebody much more skilled than me running that open hour next month. All right. So some of you were in the chat before we officially started open hour, where Nick Arone, one of our rock stars, was sporting his Idem Project baseball hat. Nick, can you lean in there? Show everybody your hat. Oh, look at that. Oh, ooh, it's like fireworks. It's like the 4th of July, looking at that right there. We have a brand new e-store. It's the Idem Project e-store. All you have to do is go to idemproject.io. We've partnered up with SALT Project, which is a powerful sibling to Idem Project. And we've got a bunch of merch in there for you now. You can go grab it and you can rep loud and proud your Idem Project, your love for Idem Project, I should say. We are going to be adding a lot more stuff in the Idem Project store in the coming days. We've got zip-up hoodies that should be in there that aren't in there for some reason. And one of the things we like to do here with Idem Project is give away free swag, free merch for feats of skill and agility with regard to your knowledge of items. So spread the word to your fellow Idem users, your Idem contributors, because we're going to be giving away all kinds of Idem swag here in Open Hour. All right, moving right along. Tyler, raise your hand for us. Tyler is one of the brilliant minds behind Idem. Arguably, you know, you're the guy in the engine room, right? I mean, isn't that the kind of the best way? You're both the brain and the engine room, I think, with Idem sometimes. Everybody say hi to Tyler. Let's give him a big round of applause. Round of applause. There we go. Thank you, Nick. Thanks for contributing. I appreciate it. Nick Hughes, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Tyler, if you would, sir, give us a demo on running tests for Idem AWS on local stack.
Sure. You can let me share my screen.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing here and you can do your thing.
Okay. Share screen. There we go. Console. Everyone can see that okay?
We can. Yep.
Big enough. So first step, of course, clone the Idem AWS repo. I'm going to assume that step's already been done. Next step, we're just going to pip install the testing requirements. And while that's going, one of the things that it's going to spin up is local stack, and local stack is what we use to run the tests. Not all the tests, but it's our first barrier against catching errors and bugs. We also run the tests on real AWS. The local stack is free and easy to use, so Once you've installed the test requirements, you can just run local stack infra start. And this will spin up a Docker container that will mock the returns from most AWS services. If you have local stack pro, then even more tests will run. Yeah. And for me personally, one of the first things I did when I joined SaltStack was try and fix the tests in what was work with the test suite in Salt Cloud. And so as Idem was being developed, one of the first things that we wanted to do was make sure that the test suite was able to be run easily by anyone in the community, even if you didn't have credentials for AWS that you could use for testing. And so that's one of these advantages of local stack and why we're using it here. So we run local stack infra start and it's ready. Now, and I've installed the test requirements over here in my other terminal. Next step is I'm going to create a credentials file, which is going to have AWS key and then test development item AWS, and then just an access key and secret access key that are nonsense values. They don't matter for local stack, but this endpoint URL is important. You're going to use localhost on port 4566. And then I also have a default profile. That's just so I can use local stack for testing exec modules and states with local stack, but that's not important for running the tests. So once I've created this profile, then I just run export account key equals that plain text file is the easiest way to do it. When you have secure AWS credentials in your credentials file, then you also want to encrypt your credentials and set up an account key, but that's a story for another time. For right now, running local stack, there's nothing secure. We can just do this with a plain text credentials file. So with that, all my setup is ready, and now I just type PyTest, and now my tests are running with local stack. And you can run the test with PyCharm or whatever tool that you prefer for running your test with PyTest. You can do that. So that's kind of the end of it. You can see the test running. I've got some failures in there. You can also see local stack spitting out some information as it gets hit as the endpoint for the tests. And that's it. That's how to run the test with Idem AWS.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Tyler. So, this open hour is brand new, as is Idem. It's a new entity. It's a new offering. We are going to be filling in this open hour with more and more stuff based on your feedback. If there's any demos that you would like to see with Idem, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. It's just Chunga on Slack or schunga@vmware.com, schunga@vmware.com. And I'll be sure to pass those demo requests along to the Idem team. You no doubt are going to have tons and tons of questions. That's the idea, right? And we want to be able to answer those as efficiently and as easily as we possibly can. I want to remind all of you to go to idemproject.io if you haven't yet, and check out everything that we have there about getting started and get you working in Idem. And I also want to put it out there that we're going to be starting, I should say, an Idem Project community Slack channel. This will be in the Salt Project community Slack channel. There's a whole thing about this. It's long, it's contractual, it's a whole thing. So if you are not a member of the Salt Project community Slack channel yet, I would encourage you to sign up there and watch for the Idem Project community Slack channel to begin. In the meantime, we do have the Idem Cloud channel, and we have ways that we can chat with you. And I'll be sure to let everybody know once that channel is up and running as we start building up the community. As we move on here, the bulk of Open Hour for, I think for the next several months is going to be the Q&A and just getting you started. That's why it's so important to have Valentina here, Dave Boucher, and Tyler. And they're here, they know everything, right, Valentina? There is not a single thing that you don't know about Idem. Not to put any pressure on you at all. But
No
if you
pressure.
have, yeah, if you have any questions about Idem, now would be the time for you to ask those questions, and we'll get you started. And in the meantime, you can always go back to the YouTube channel, the Idem Project YouTube channel, which is also just getting started. And you can hit us on Slack if you have any questions in the meantime. But right now, fire away. Typically, I like to call on Nick Hughes first, because he has the most questions. Is that accurate, Nick? Do you have the most questions for this Idem Project Open Hour?
I don't know about the most. So you were mentioning Idem Project Slack. There's currently an Idem Project channel in the Salt Project Slack workspace. Is that the one that you're referencing, or is that something separate?
Yeah, well, we may consolidate those because we have an Idem Cloud, and we have a couple of different channels. And what I want to try and do is consolidate it all into one area. So we may be just driving everybody there, or I may be starting a whole new thing. So I'm going to get in there and take a look at that, and then we'll just let you know. We'll start blasting that everywhere, and that will be our central hub for communication for Idem Project, for community and contributions as we go forward.
Okay. This question's for Tyler. When you were doing your demo, Tyler, you exported the account key environment variable. It's been a little bit since I played with account, but did you mean like account file instead of
I just exported account file. I didn't use an account key. In the demo.
Yeah, I think you typed account key. That's why I was asking.
Oh, did I? I did. I ran the demo before we did this, and I had exported the account file properly, and so
Good catch,
it
Nick.
seems it happens to have worked despite me having it. Yeah, you need to export account file, and if it's a plain text file, then you need to not have an account key in your environment.
Awesome. And I think my last question is in the somewhat inaugural open hour that was very late my time. I can't remember a whole lot other than I think that the core of a lot of what some folks were bringing up, especially myself, was really like transparency and mechanisms to get more community involvement in the direction of the project. I know that this was one of the initiatives that was sort of committed to during that, but I believe like we were just talking about potentially some other things that would facilitate that, like the moving of the Jira tickets, internal Jira tickets, into GitLab issues and things like that. Was there any progress on any of those other things?
Yeah, we actually started quite a bit of internal discussion about it. The issue is that Idem is currently used internally as a platform for internal projects, and all of the issue tracking and some tagging and the whole mechanism of tracking work for internal projects is in the Jira. So we're still trying to figure out how we can move to GitLab. So basically we cannot move that to GitLab. So the connection with the internal projects, but we want to have open information in GitLab as well.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you probably have a lot of internal hooks into the open source projects, but I mean, that's no different than anybody that builds on top of open source technologies. I mean, we do a lot of rapid prototyping with POP in general, and so if we find things that need to be done in the POP open source project, we're going to leverage those or levy those issues on those open source projects. Or if we feel like we're going to create a new module, a POP module that would be, available to everyone and useful, then, we do that. I mean, there should be a somewhat clear separation between what is considered open source and the issues assigned to it, and what are internal projects and proprietary.
Yeah, and that's a very clear delineation. I believe where we left this in that first initial kind of dry run for this, Nick, was that we were going to see what we could do about separating that so that contributors could contribute to item, but it wouldn't interfere with anything that was proprietary and happening internally with item as it relates to the various products that it's embedded in and involved in internally at VMware. Tyler, we did talk about that in that last meeting. Is there I guess it's still underway, the progress of trying to separate those. I think that's what Valentina is saying. Is that correct, either one of you? That we're trying to figure out how to separate the two? Is that
Yeah, we're still trying to figure it out. And I think you're right that there is a separation between issues with the open source project specifically and issues that have to do with just the proprietary software that shouldn't be open. And the things that can go into the open source issue tracking should.
Yeah, and it's just
right.
that separation. Go for it.
Yeah,
Valentina.
and we have some issues being open and open source, and we track that. So we kind of trying to figure out how we can manage both, because like if there is a issue in the open source project that is a release blocker for the internal project, then it needs to be in Jira. It needs to be tagged in Jira so the management can see, okay, this is how many release blockers we have for like April monthly release, and they will not be able to track that in GitLab because they use Jira. So how do we, if anybody on this call has an advice how to manage that, that works if the open source project is sort of a black box for the internal project. But if we are kind of sharing within internal project, then we find these issues that, yeah, I actually talked to my manager and I said, can we move everything to GitLab? And the answer was no, because we track in progress internally in Jira for some of the issues in Idem.
Sure.
And
so I guess the main point that I want to get across is that I don't want this to be a repeating issue. Like if we show up to every open hour and I ask if there's been any progress, and the answer is no, we're still working on it, that doesn't seem reasonable to me. And I understand that you have internal logistic problems with your ticket tracking, but to be blunt, that's kind of not the problem of the open source community, right? Like I know that VMware is driving the beginnings of this open source community, but other people who aren't VMware don't care about your Jira, right? Like we just want stuff that's out there. And so, being able to see what issues you've found with the open source project, get people involved in fixing those, the only way that you're going to be able to leverage, the collective resources of the community is to be more transparent in that regard. So I don't think that there's going to be any magic bullet here. I think that you're just going to have to go through the issues one by one and start to extract the open source pieces. And
what
how
I
you
think
track
would be
that
great
internally is kind of a VMware thing.
Nick, I would appreciate, I think the whole team would appreciate your help and your feedback on this, perhaps more than once a month, if you're willing. Right now we've got we don't want to have that happen either. We don't want to have you show up once a month and go, okay, where are we with this? We want to have that transparency. We want to be able to do that. These are growing pains. This is a good problem to have. This is something that we're going to have to work through. We all know that, and it's something that we are doing, working towards making that happen. Getting Idem to where it's at right now happened at breakneck speed. And that was doing no small part to the support of VMware. And we want to make sure that we're accommodating everybody to the extent that we can. So I'll tell you what, Nick, let's you and I chat I'm going to send you an invite, and maybe we can even sync weekly on this so that we can find out exactly where we are and exactly where we're going in order to make that happen. Because this is one of those situations where everybody is right. You're right. You know what I mean? I don't think we really need to go into it beyond that. I think all points are well and all points are good. But I also think that we can move at a speed, or at least attempt to move at a speed that would be more accommodating to you, Nick. So I appreciate your points, and I appreciate you bringing it up. Is there anything else? Any more questions there, Nick?
Not for me.
Okay, anybody else? I do have a question about ChatGPT. I have one of my own questions, if that's all right. I know Nick Arone is a big fan of ChatGPT. Tyler's a big fan. I've not used it yet. I downloaded an app and it wanted to charge me a lot of money to use it. And I realized that I probably wasn't in the right place. So I gave up. So I decided to go, I'm going to talk to Tyler a little bit more about it. However, when talking about Idem Project in ChatGPT, user beware. Tyler, can you tell us a little bit about what ChatGPT knows about Idem?
Nothing. ChatGPT was created, or its knowledge is frozen at 2021. So I asked ChatGPT to write me in a blog post about Idem, and it's like, Idem is an rsync tool to make backups of local data. Like it was just confidently wrong about everything. That said,
it wasn't even close, right? It wasn't even close.
It wasn't even close. But then again, too, with ChatGPT, on its own, it just gives you a bunch of words. And I think of ChatGPT as a ghostwriter. Like it gives you something that's totally random garbage, and you give it feedback, and it gives it a little bit more polish. Give it feedback, a little bit more polish. If you're actually using ChatGPT as a tool, its first response is never going to be useful. It's more like clay that you've got to mold into what you need.
And you would not recommend using ChatGPT with Idem in any way yet?
Oh
right?
yeah, I would recommend it.
Oh, you would?
Hold
Okay.
on. You've got to know when it's lying to you. When it lies confidently, and it doesn't have up-to-date information about Idem. I've tried creating SLS states. Like I asked it to use Idem AWS to create SLS, and it created YAML, and it referenced things that are real AWS things, but it wasn't valid functioning states. So we are coming up on an innovation sprint, and we're planning on using AI to with Idem in different ways. Some of our ideas are like, you could use ChatGPT to translate logs to any language on the fly. That's a very easy task to throw in there. Or we could use it with Pop Create to do more intelligent creation of an Idem project based on an open API spec. That's something that ChatGPT is very well suited for. So we're looking at ways that we can use AI to leverage AI in Idem. But yeah, it's experimental and not necessarily the highest priority.
All right,
well,
very
we
good.
have an internal project that actually worked with Idem. When you can use preconditioning, so you can tell ChatGPT a lot of information about Idem, because it doesn't know about it, and then it was able to actually create write SLS files. We published a TikTok about it. I think that's last TikTok on our Idem project TikTok page that we sent. I'll find a link to it. It's pretty cool. We have an internal team. It's ChatGPT is very interesting within. We have a lot of people interested in it. So we have an internal team that is working on integrating.
Oh, that's cool.
Idem.
I did not know we had a team working on it. That's great.
Yeah.
So okay. Any other questions? Anybody else?
There's some questions in chat. I think the one that I'd like to call out is questions about Idem's use in production. So if anybody from VMware has some knowledge on that and wants to chime in, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we actually have a team that converted Terraform files to Idem to deploy our production environments. So all the ARIA, so all the SaaS environments, ARIA automation, ARIA guardrails, all this AWS infrastructure that hosts that was initially Terraform was initially used to deploy and manage it, and we converted that to Idem, and that's it. That's in production.
Okay. Actually, Lawrence, that's a good question. It's a Chat GPT question, Tyler. I don't know if you can answer it. Is the knowledge still frozen now for Chat GPT? I read that they connected to the internet last week. Do you know what that means?
Oh, I haven't heard news of it being connected to the internet. Just from playing with it and my personal experience with it, I was guessing that when ChatGPT was released in February, it was a beta, and they wanted to. They probably had some kinks to work out. As the internet gets flooded with content created with the help of AI, we didn't want to create a feedback loop of confidently wrong sources. I imagine that's something. That's the reason I can think of.
The model is only trained up to 2021. They released, with the release of ChatGPT plugins, they released a plugin called Browser, and that has the ability to retrieve new data from the internet. But the normal model that doesn't involve that plugin is still capped at 2021.
When I want to use AI to get recent data, I've found surprisingly that Microsoft's Bing AI is helpful for parsing real-time data, but it's not useful for coming up with fun, wacky stories.
I do have another question here, shifting off of Chat GPT, if we're okay with that. We okay to move past Chat GPT for 1 sec? Question about a link between Idem Project and Salt Project, Idem software, Salt software. There is a link in the works, so we're working on it. It's a bridge, if you will. It's not ready yet. In fact, it may be a bit of time before it's ready, but it is underway. It is something that we're working towards, and it is something that will happen. I just don't have a deliverable date. I don't even have a timeline on it, other than to just say it's underway. So to answer your question, yes, there is a link. It's not available yet, and as soon as it is, we'll definitely put it out there. Going through the question,
Chunga,
yeah, go for it.
There's currently some modules. I think Tyler had written them in Salt that give you the ability to run some things in Idem from Salt, but I think that the functionality that you're talking about with the bridge are the ties into the event bus. Is that accurate, Tyler?
Yes, that's
the current ones that are in Salt. I'm not sure if anyone is using them or how well they work, because it was like I put it in there and then it kind of froze. But I'm currently working on Heist, Salt Heist, and getting it to a place where it can be easily integrated into Idem AWS or Idem Azure. And once I'm finished with that, then the next step is to make a runner in Salt that will be able to run Idem code. And then that's going to become the officially supported way for using Idem inside of Salt. And that's going to be connected to Salt config and all of the other Project Aria stuff. That's
so the one thing that I would say is that having a runner available is great, but I wouldn't say that should be the only mechanism, because then that limits you to only running on masters.
Would there be a need to run on minions?
Potentially. I'm usually like a don't limit me type of guy. So, as it stands right now with Salt Cloud, it doesn't require to be run on a master. So it would be a departure from how things are currently done. Now, I'm not aware of anybody running Salt Cloud on Minions, but I am aware of some folks using the execution and state modules that might be cloud specific on Minions. So
I'm still a month or so out from actually being able to do that integration, so that I'd be happy to have more design discussion to find what might work better or might be a better fit.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Scan it through the chat here. Feel free, even if you've asked it in the chat, if there's something that we may be missing here, go ahead and pipe up while we've got the time. No other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I was just hoping for like a quick overview about what Idem's trying to accomplish. I first heard about it, I feel like it was more than 6 months ago. And it seemed to me at the time like it was going to be a replacement for Salt Cloud. Listening to some of the questions and answers that are going on today, I feel like it seems like it's a little bit more than that. And I'll admit that I didn't look into any of the videos and things that you have on the Idem Project website as maybe a prerequisite to this meeting. But if somebody could give me like a quick overview, I think that would be helpful.
So you mentioned Salt Cloud. Salt Cloud will always be around, so that you know. The goal here with Idem, for those of you that are Salt Cloud users, will be that Idem Project does what Salt Cloud does and so much more. So the hope here is not that you'll keep using Salt Cloud and we'll keep updating Salt Cloud and we'll keep maintaining Salt Cloud. The hope is that Salt Cloud will be there if you want it, but there's going to be so much functionality and so many capabilities with Idem Cloud. It'll be an organic shift for you. It's just something that you're just going to want to gravitate to and use more. Tyler, Tyler or Valentina could probably field this more than me. If I were to give you a quick overview of Idem, I would basically say it just simplifies the cloud and it reports all of your, there's internet as code. Well, we report everything back or infrastructure as code, excuse me. We report everything back as infrastructure as data. And then you can then take that data and use it in a much more transparent and responsive and faster way. Tyler or Valentina, do you want to take it and be more technical about that? And again, Rich, I would tell you, hey, look, go to idemproject.io. We've got videos and we've got, docs and we've got all that stuff there. So you're getting a very short elevator pitch from me and probably a short elevator pitch from Dave Boucher or Valentina or Tyler as well. Anybody want to jump in there for Rich? Anybody?
If you wanted to take, I'll defer to Valentina if you want to go first, but if not, then.
Yeah, you just start talking, so go ahead.
Okay. I feel like like Chunga said, the move to Idem over Salt Cloud will be organic, and Salt Cloud isn't going to go away. There is initiative to move it out of Salt and into Salt extensions, so it can be easier to maintain or more clear what is being used in it, and so on. You've heard all the arguments for that, I'm sure. But yeah, it's not going to go away. It's not going to disappear. You're not going to have the rug pulled out from under you and suddenly have to switch to Idem and because Salt Cloud disappeared. That's not going to happen. Salt Cloud will always be there.
That's not actually a concern, but I was just kind of using Salt Cloud as the basis of my understanding what Idem is supposed to be. It sounds like it's going to be a superset of Salt Cloud's features. So
yeah,
we're a little more insight into that.
You can use it to set up an EC2 instance in a very specific way. With Idem, you can have a state that controls every aspect of an instance. You'll have your present state for an instance that manages its tags, its network interface attachments, its block device mappings, and then you'll have a separate state for network interfaces, for block device mappings, for your subnet VPC, and you have fine-tuned control over every aspect of your cloud infrastructure.
So one thing that we talked about in the last, I apologize, Tyler. One thing that we talked about in the last kind of dry run that we had for Open Hour, Nick Hughes was talking about, well, I've got, young developers, I've got young programmers, and I'm assigning them a lot of things to do with Salt Cloud. Should I continue to assign them those things, or should I push them towards Idem? And we said push them towards Idem. Again, Salt Cloud will be there, but as Idem matures and Idem develops, again, it's a baby. It's going to be something that you're just going to feel more comfortable with. That's our thought. Anyway, it's going to have more functionality and it's going to have more to do with it. And beyond that, I'd say, hey, get in there and start using it. Go to idemproject.io and we'll get you set up and get you started. And by the way, Rich, because I loved your question so much, if you hit me up at schunga at vmware.com, or you hit me up on Slack at Chunga, I'll send you a code to you go pick out something out of the e-store, some Idem swag to get your repping things the right way. So is there anything else, Rich? Anything else you'd have?
Yeah, I guess if more specifically, so one of our use cases with Salt and Salt Cloud is, we have a master in EC2. We have various minions in EC2. We have various minions that actually take the form of hardware out in the real world. And one of the things we use Salt Cloud for is to obviously spin up new minions with infrastructure as code type of technique, right? And when we spin them up, they automatically become associated minions with the master that we ran Salt Cloud on. To Nicholas Hughes's point, we've also experimented with running Salt Cloud on a minion which is not the master for certain reasons. But I'm just wondering, does that type of workflow something that Idem is designed for? Am I going to be able to use Idem to deploy new Salt minions? Or
Yes,
is
that
the
is the
sisterhood
ultimate.
between Idem and Salt more are they supposed to work together, or is Idem more of a replacement for Salt, or something that works or does the same job? Or is Idem more like something that does the same job as Salt Cloud, but maybe does it better? And also be interested in understanding what you mean when you draw the distinction between infrastructure as code and infrastructure as data.
Yeah, I'll address some of those comments first here. The goal is for Idem to work with Salt Cloud. What I'm doing right now in Heist, if you're familiar with Heist, it's kind of the evolution of Salt SSH.
Okay.
But that's what I'm going to be integrating directly into Idem AWS. And the goal is that you will be able to spin up instances, or spin up new minions and have them connect back to the master with Idem. That is a functionality that is critical in having it be able to replace Salt Cloud. And so that's my number one priority right now inside of that's the number one thing that I'm working on right now. And so I'm hoping to be finished in the coming weeks. And I'll keep everyone posted on it.
Okay.
Great. So yeah, Salt Cloud uses SSH pretty heavily, but perhaps it doesn't use the Salt SSH suite of functions and libraries. Is that
right?
Accurate?
And in Idem, we would use Heist, which uses the async SSH libraries, and yeah.
Gotcha. And then the infrastructure as code versus infrastructure as data question, I'd be interested to know what you mean when you draw that distinction.
Tyler,
Right.
Valentina?
So Idem does both infrastructure as code and infrastructure as data. So it's 100% equivalent to Terraform. So you can write code, you can write your for loop and create the infrastructure and maintain this code. But what Idem also does, it lets you discover existing infrastructure and then generate SLS files for that. So you can just point to whatever you already have created an AWS account and just generate SLS files for that, and then move to manage it with Idem. And then it's more of a data-oriented approach. So you just generate everything and then this becomes more disposable. So if you do make any changes in AWS directly outside of the item, you can just regenerate item SLS files for that.
I see. So with infrastructure as data, you're talking about not only can you pull the cloud provider for the current state of affairs, so to speak, you can then use that data to generate code on the infrastructure as code side. And so,
right.
And then you mentioned a loop when you're standing up the environment. So does that mean like your functions and libraries, which actually go out to the cloud provider and stand up these instances, have some sort of like robust data that's being returned so that you can like react to it in the process of spinning up this environment? So maybe you make a system and you don't just get back like a success or an error code, but you get back like data about the system that you maybe just deployed instead of just getting a simple return code, so that you can actually like react to the results of your system being stood up like in a programmatical way.
That's right. That's exactly what we do. We do when the object is deployed, we return all of the information about it and represent it in SLS. So you can react to it and bind to information. And we actually store it also in IDEM. We have something called ESM. That's kind of a local store for everything that gets deployed in the cloud. So then we have your SLS, then we have the information that is stored in the ESM, and then the actual state in the cloud. And we always try to bring the actual state close to the desired state.
Okay, so it's like for regular like the salt state system, you have kind of a declarative programming style. The execution module system kind of undergirds that and does all of the procedural stuff, and you're kind of items kind of building up a state system, but for like the cloud in the same way that the state system in Salt works on on an OS.
And Idem is even designed to work with exec modules the same way that Salt states are, to do all of the operative work. And you can call them from the CLI too.
Okay, so it's kind of like a cloud-wide state system in the same way that the state system for an operating system exists, but with execution modules undergirding it. But you have a set of item execution modules, for lack of a better term, that do two-way communication with the cloud and allow you to build a declarative system on top of that.
Yep.
And then, of course, you probably abstract things out for different cloud providers the way you abstract out operating systems at the execution module level. Okay, and so like it's a evolution of the Salt Cloud map feature.
That's a great way to think of it.
Okay, that actually brings me a lot more understanding.
And the item stands for idempotent, and so the goal is to achieve, like Valentino was saying, the desired state. I like to describe it too as it's like the movie Groundhog Day, the plot of Groundhog Day, where he just tries the same day over and over and over again until he gets it right. That's what Idem does. Does reruns over and over until it gets it right.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. There's also quite a discussion going on in the chat. Talking about Salt and Idem. I'd like to encourage everyone as we're chatting here to go take a look at that. And thank you, Patrick Moffett. It was always awesome clarifying all of this gobbledygook for people that are new to this. So thank you, Patrick. Okay, is there anybody else? Anything else before we call it a day? All right, Rich, be sure to reach out and hit me up for that item swag, will you?
Yeah, I sure will. Thanks.
I want you to be a human billboard for us as you're out there repping our stuff. Nick Hughes, I'm going to be reaching out to you via Slack, so watch for me, sir. And we'll get something going so we can get you satisfied, okay?
Will do.
And thanks to everybody else for showing up for the very first Idem Project Community Open Hour. Very exciting stuff. Thank you, Valentina. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Dave Boucher. for being here to, you know, to clear up the fog and everything else. If there's any questions in the meantime, again, you're more than welcome to hit me up on Slack, and I'll get with, if I can't answer it myself, I'll be sure to get with the people who can. And again, I'm a broken record, I know. Go to idemproject.io, idemproject.io, and take a look at the docs, and that should help get you on your way. So thanks, everybody. Again, the next open hour, it will be on April 27th, same time. All right. And we appreciate you being here. We'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.